So today I want to talk about the legibility of your text. That is the most important thing for text, is that people can read it no matter what's in the background. Now this background is transparent. I don't have any gradients that I have in this file. So I also want to show you how to get things from one file to another. Let me go pull up another one of my backgrounds. When I was showing this to my students yesterday, I want these to be in the other one. So how do I do that? Well, I just need to pull down like a tab on a browser, and that will allow me to then move things from one to the other. That's using the move tool here. I can just click on this and drag it to the other one. You don't see it until you drop it. Don't worry too much about where it is on there. I'm simply going to switch over to this other one. You can click on the name right up here, and then take the second one, drag it over there, return to the one that's got all of them, grab it, drag and drop it. Last one here, BG1, dragging and dropping. Then I can close my source and just move these where they need to be. Now, Photoshop does a pretty good job of letting you just click on something and move it. So I'm just going to move that. It'll snap into place. I can see this one here, and this one, and then this one. That's why I wasn't too precise in where I placed them, so I was able to grab all of them at the same time. Let's move these up on top, and let's talk about making this text legible. So right now I've got a blue color overlay on top of a background that has a lot of blue in it. So you just need to know about two different layer styles that can make that more legible. I've got my drop shadow there, so let me right click and go to blending options, or click on this little arrow to bring back your current effects. You can double click on effects to bring up that whole tab again, the panel, or you can double click directly on one of these if you want to make a change to it. So right now I've got a color overlay. Let me make this especially hard to see by changing the color of my text and going to my background. I have an eyedropper now that will let me select whatever color my background is. So you can see the color of my text changing, and I'm going to try and make it really rather hard to see. So that's a cool little trick there to get a color from whatever image you have. And now I'm going to use the stroke. So the stroke is one of the easiest ones to handle. You can see the size of the stroke. It doesn't have a lot of controls. You can change how big the stroke is. Now notice how it's taking over my text. That's because the position is set to inside. So to make it more legible, we actually need it to be on the outside. So we've got our stroke that's black around it, and then when I take it off, so you can see that it does help outline it. You can even see that the bevel emboss is kind of sort of doing that. If there's no bevel and emboss, then it really is very flat and the colors merge together right here at the top. So I'm going to keep my bevel and emboss. I'm going to add that stroke, and let's change the color of the stroke. Because if it's white, usually, like if you just want to be safe, either black or white is going to be the best colors to use. If you start getting into other colors, you can make it even harder to read instead of easier. So that right there is one way. Try not to just do this. That to me, it's not showing any precision in applying these effects. I think just a little bit of a stroke around it can be all you need sometimes. Now, if you want something that's not so hard-edged like this, and make something that looks, to me, even cooler, a little more professional, we can add an outer glow. So my blending mode right now is normal because I was working on this earlier. By default, many times what you're going to see is screen. And so it's screening out the colors that are behind it from the green. So a lot of times if you're looking for legibility, just change it to normal and pick, I'll just go with that white again. Now this may look very similar to the stroke at first. I'm going to press Control plus on my keyboard, and now you see that hand there that shows up. If you use the space bar, you can bring up that hand whenever you want. So this is actually a better way of determining what that glow is going to look like. Now by default, I'm not sure what those numbers are, but these are the two things that you need to change in order to make that look different. Spread and size. If you just do spread or just do size, you don't really get what you want. Now, opacity sometimes is also low. And if it's 0, then you won't see anything happening when you do this. So bring up your opacity. 100% is actually pretty safe to go with for an outer glow. And bring these numbers up a little at a time and try and find the good balance where it doesn't just look like a stroke, but kind of glows around it. That's the idea, make an outer glow around your text. Colors are doable. If I do a black glow, it does help some, but because this blue is pretty dark, I would say use white. So we've got a pretty good outer glow around our text. Let me just hit OK. And you can do the before and after. So I always like to come back here and look at the before the legibility and after the legibility. So it could be something that we might want to do for our name here as well. Although with all the rest of the stuff, and it's a very thin font, probably not the best idea. Let me see what effects are on here. I've got my color overlay. Let me double click on effects and bring up an outer glow. That default green makes it a little hard to see, so I'm just going with white and just increasing the spread and the size until I have a kind of background for that text that is going to make it easier to read. It is a very difficult font because it has very thin scripty parts on there, and that's okay for your name, but not for your titles. Okay, so this is called the intro screen. So once you've decided that this is the background that you want for your intro, then you could double click on it and then add that word intro so you know which one is going with which. Because then when you make your others, you'll hide that and do your 3 other categories. Nice and big.